This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Now, let me tell you why I am particularly glad. Do you guys know that Monday, Labor Day, is my birthday? I'm glad in it. And I will be 86 years old. Another reason why I'm glad in this day is I'm honored to have present with me the person who recommended that I come this way, Edie Bergeon, glad you're here. And my wife, Betty, is with me. And let me tell you something interesting about that. I married Betty 57 years ago. And at that time, actually, I robbed the cradle. Betty is an older woman than I am. As a matter of fact, her birthday is March the 24th, 1935. And my birthday is September 6, 1935. That makes her 6 months older than me. For 6 months, I have to say yes, ma'am, to her. Betty, glad to see you. And whenever Betty is present, Betty has some challenges right now. She doesn't like for me to mention it because you're not supposed to mention things like dementia. In fact, when I even talk about it, I simply call it mild cognitive impairment. Betty, stand up. And whenever she's present, I like to say this about her. She's the cream in my coffee, sugar in my tea, honey on my biscuit, and the only fish in my sea. God bless you, baby. Oh, wow. Now, there's no need to mess around. I might as well get started with what is on my heart. And you should know that actually after COVID-19, when they closed down the churches and I haven't been able to preach very much, I'm kind of out of style. I mean, my rhythm is off. I mean, everything is. I mean, I'm trying to get back into shape for hitting the field again. But I want you to know that I feel like I am here today by divine appointment. I'd like to think that. And so what I'm going to do is to talk to you. This will not be your usual Jim Forbes presentation. This has to do with an existential assignment in my life as I now am reaching the 86th year of my life. So let's get right down to business. All of this began in June. I was invited by St. Joseph's AME Church and St. Paul's Lutheran Church to be the speaker for the Emmanuel 9 commemoration. I said, yes, I'll accept the invitation. Immediately thereafter, I had to ask myself, well, I hear that the Emmanuel 9 were in Bible study the night they were martyrdom. They were martyred. And so I started asking around, what was the Bible study about that night? What was the issue? Turns out that as I kept searching and searching, I find that that night they were studying Mark chapter 4, the parable of the sower, and, as I now understand, of the soil. So I got to work on the project and thought that I did a pretty good job. I was at St. Joseph's Church the bishop of North Carolina of the Lutheran Church, and the pastor of St. Paul Lutheran Church was there, the pastor of St. Joseph's AME Church. And I preached that night, what kind of soil are you determined to be? Well, they congratulated me, patted me on the back, and I thought it was over. That was just the beginning of trouble. For thereafter, the Lord spoke to me and says, yes, it was the parable of the sower and of the soil, but I'm not through with it yet. For as you know, that parable did not change the course of action of Dylan Ruth. He went on and shot those people. But an interesting thing, after he had shot 9 people, he then turned his Glock on himself to shoot himself. But he discovered that he had expended all of his ammunition. No bullets left. When I heard about that, I thought I heard a voice from high heaven saying, yes, they were studying Mark 4, and it did not complete its work on Dylan Ruth, who had listened to the parable, listened to their explanations for an hour, and then proceeded to do what he had come there to do, to destroy the lives of these people, with the anticipation that as a result of his actions, probably so much anger would be stirred up that he thought he might foment another civil war. But Isaiah 55 made it clear to me, I'm not through with that parable yet. Remember, my word shall not return unto me void, but will accomplish the purposes for which I have sent it. I'm not through with it yet. Therefore, I'm here today to announce to you that sometimes when you accept a preaching engagement and you do a good job and you think it's over, don't be so sure. Well, here's what happened. Number one, and I guess you might as well know, I'm actually going to be talking to you about 3 actions, but I'll tell you about number 1. Number 1, Jim, I need to have you, if you get a chance, to go to Terre Haute, Indiana, Federal Penitentiary. And I want you to ask Dylan Ruth, if you get a chance, I want you to ask him, did that parable say something to him that has altered his life? Did it say something that gives him a new sense of what he has to be doing? So that's the number 1. I have a responsibility. And I'm here to ask you, because I understand that at the Wild Goose Festival, there are folks there that get stuff done. There are folks out here, so I want to ask everything, each one of these things I have been asked to do, I'm asking you, if you, any of you, hear the voice of God asking you to help the parable complete the purpose whereunto it is sent? Think about it, and maybe Jeff or somebody will help you figure out how to get in touch. Well, anyway, here's the first part. I've got to get there, and you're not by yourself. I immediately began to talk with friends like Brian Stevenson. You know him? Just Mercy. And turns out that Brian Stevenson says, well, through his secretary, I know the attorney of Dylan Ruth. Oh. And I will do what I can to see whether or not it's possible to get an audience for you. Edie says she wants to go. In addition to that, I've also talked to the bishop of the Lutheran Church. Dylan Ruth was a Christian. Dylan Ruth was a Lutheran. The Lutheran Church is invested in doing what it can to make sure that God's parable does not return unto us void, but will accomplish the purpose whereunto it's sent. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. So I've talked with the bishop of the AME Church, and I've talked with the bishop of the Lutheran Church, and I've told them that I have a project which I'm going to tell you about a little bit later. But the point is, Wild Goose folks, somebody out there may have something to do with making sure that the word does not return void, but accomplish the purposes whereunto it is sent. And now I can tell you where it's sent. I believe, I know you can't hear me. I believe that parable is sent to, well, let me come back so you can hear me. That parable is sent to the United States of America. There's something in the parable of the sower and of the soil that may help save this nation from the headlong plunge it is making into devastation. And so, America, excuse me, no, I'm talking now. I believe that the parable of the sower and of the soil may help save the soul of this nation. Well, let me explain to you a little bit further why I say so. That goes back to Dylan Ruth. The night that Dylan Ruth was present in Mother Emanuel, he listened to the parable for an hour, got up, shot 9 of them. Several of them were complaining, saying, I'm not going to kill you. I want you to stay here to tell the story. The way I know about this is Reverend Sharon Risher, who heard I was coming, said she was going to be here. She's not here today, but for such a time as this is her story. Hope and forgiveness after the Charleston massacre. In her book, she explains that he said to one lady, shut up, I'm not going to kill you. I want you to stay here and tell the story. In another section, I heard that he said that after listening to that parable, he was convinced that he'd better go ahead and do what he had gone there to do, because if he didn't, he would not be able to carry it out. In other words, the parable of the sower and of the soil, that parable at least made him hurry up. Do what you're going to do quickly, because that parable was working on him. When I get to visit him, if I do, I want to ask him, what did you hear in that parable that stirred you up so that you figured you can't wait, you better kill them now, or else you weren't going to be able to kill them? Why? What happened? Well, that gets me around to the next section. When he killed those people, he decided to shoot himself, but he couldn't. The ammunition is all expended. I want to ask him, how do you feel? I killed 9, but I could not kill myself. Does that have anything to say to you? Does that make you think that although you may have had mental health problems throughout your life, and although there were those who made you think you were nobody, and although there were those who made you think you couldn't count unless you did the devil's work, does the fact that you couldn't shoot yourself say something to you about somebody up there must think I am worth something? I killed 9, but I could not kill myself. Does that speak to you about how you must not believe what an evil society says about you? How you must not assume that the only place you have is white supremacy ideology or nationalistic ideology or racist ideology? Oh my goodness. The next item comes on. The second assignment, not only to see how you can talk to Dylan Ruth, but as I said, my word shall not return unto me void, but shall accomplish the purpose whereunto it is sent, whereunto it is sent, whereunto it is sent. Push the record, whereunto it is sent, whereunto it is sent. And I have said, I believe it is sent to the United States of America. That's where it's sent. Well, how are we going to get it out there? That's the second item. Next year, June 17, 2022, will be the 7th commemoration of the martyrdom of the Mother Emanuel 9. The Lord says, it is sent to the congregations of America. So, Ken, I've been talking with the bishop of the Lutheran Church, the bishop of the AME Church. Next year, on the 17th of June, I am proposing that we do the best we can to get congregations across the nation to hear whereunto it is sent, whereunto it is sent, whereunto it is sent. It is sent to the congregations of this nation to hear what Jesus was trying to say in the parable of the sower and of the soil. What does it have to say? What does it have to say to the United States of America? Black folks, white folks, gay folks, transgender folks, evangelicals, American Baptists like I was, or UCC, or the Lutheran Church, or to the Presbyterian Church, or to the Moravian Church. What does it have to say to Americans out of that parable. I think I've been working on that parable. Lord, have mercy. The idea that when Dylan Ruth has purchased his gun, has purchased ammunition, that God, in God's providential care, allows out of all of the parables of Jesus, this one parable. It's as if God says, that boy is headed to hell. That boy is headed to degradation. That boy is headed towards a murderous assignment. But if I could just get this parable in his head.
Yep.
If I could just get this parable in his heart, perhaps I could turn it around. Oh, now I understand why the Spirit was speaking to me. Jim, America is in worse shape than most of us can remember. Polarization on the basis of party. Polarization on the basis of race. There are those people who are so afraid of the demographics of the people of color that they have stooped lower than low with voter suppression, that they have managed to pull off the dastardly deeds of robbing people of the opportunity to enjoy a democratic way of life. Jim, and when I say Jim, that's like the Lord talking to me. And God does not call me Reverend Dr. Forbes. Jim, what difference could it make if citizens across this nation could deal with the question, what kind of soil are you determined to be? That's where the idea came. We must make sure that June 17, 2022 is a time when congregations across this nation, even if the lectionary did not designate it for June 17, would take time out. What will it take to make you alter your activity for one night in a week to honor 9 brothers and sisters of your faith who died listening to the parable of the sower and of the soil? Now, I heard that I was going to have a chance to go to Wild Goose. Somebody said people at Wild Goose are more likely than any other aggregation you can come up with, unless it's your Healing of the Nations Foundation, or unless it's your Samuel D. Witt Proctor Conference, or unless it's Alliance of Baptist Group or whatever, can you find? Well, somebody. It doesn't have to be you, but this one right over there, this one right over there might encourage her congregation. I know we have all sorts of things going on June 17, but this year, let's do Bible study. By the way, I'm so excited about this thing until I talked with my friend Marvin McMickle, and we're going to get some other colleagues of ours. We're going to do a Bible study. I don't know how we're going to do it, Ken. I'm not too good at that kind of thing. My technical skills are not that good. I don't know. But we're going to do a Bible study so that they will be available to congregations across this nation so that they can discover what they might do with the parable of the sower and of the soil. Well, that's the second assignment. And there's a third one. I keep trying to fumble for my watch to see how my time is going.
You're doing fine, brother.
Well, by the way, oh my goodness, when you start really studying up on the parable of the sower and of the soil, Edmund Steinle was a Lutheran. He was one of my first preaching teachers. He wrote a book, introduced a book on the parables. Please, y'all, excuse me. Let me have just, can I have about 2 or 3 minutes to preach? When you get ready to read a parable, don't just read the parable. Understand that the parables of Jesus, if you can have access to it, are contextual. It has to do with what was happening. And he tells the story, not simply to paint a picture, not simply to make it clear, but a story that gives you a crisis. That's the thing I want to say. Parables, people say parables paint the picture. No, they do more than paint the picture. Parables create crisis. A crisis that says, this is what you were facing. If you do this, that's what's happening. If you do that, that's what's happening. Make up your mind. What side are you on? That's what that parable does. The parable actually took place. Those of you who really are Bible scholars, read the 3rd chapter. I never preach a parable without looking at the context. Read the 3rd chapter of Mark. Oh, I even have some notes on it. Mark, listen. He entered the synagogue. There was a man with a withered hand. The folks watched to see whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, so that they might have occasion to accuse him. He told the man, stand forth. That's just like Jesus. Stand forth. And he said, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath day or to do evil? And when he had looked around about them with anger. What? Jesus got angry, looked at them, recognized that they are not likely to believe what I'm telling them. Looked with anger, and he was grieved for their hardness of heart. And then he told the man, everybody, stretch out your hand. Come on, stretch out your hand. That's what he told. And he healed the man. And of course, when he did that, guess what folks said? There are folks here who are always attempting to say that when good things happen, the devil did it. They said, Jesus has healed this man through the power of Beelzebub. And the Pharisees went out and also took counsel with the Herodians that they might destroy him. Hey, the parable of the soil is in the context of they getting ready to kill him. It's a foreshadowing of the cross right then and there. But Jesus withdrew himself with his disciples, went out at sea so he could teach a little bit more. He went out, listen, and a multitude, apparently he had impact. A multitude of people. Listen, how far from? From Galilee, from Judea, from Jerusalem, from Idumea, and from beyond the Jordan, and those around Tyre and Sidon, and a great multitude when they had heard the great things that Jesus has done. And he spoke to his disciples and said, get me in a boat, a little ship, so I can get out, so they won't throng me, for he had healed many of them, insomuch that they pressed in upon him. And then they said, oh, no, the work he's doing is being done by Beelzebub. Hey, the parable of the soil is about an accusation that Jesus is of the devil. There are people all over this country who are saying of the truth that it is of the devil. They are saying of justice that it is of the devil. They are saying that anti-racism is of the devil. They are saying that openness and inclusiveness in regards to sexual orientation is of the devil. So that's what they said. It's of the devil. Well, then after that, he went on about his business. Folks said, something wrong with that man. They said, his family, they said, y'all, he's beside himself. When you speak for justice, they say, you're beside yourself. When you speak for equality, they say, you're beside yourself. When you speak against America being a truly democratic society, they say you're beside yourself. When you speak about a world where all of God's children have a right to vote no matter what their political party, they say you're beside yourself. But guess what Jesus says? Whosoever will do the will of my Father, that's my mother and my sister and my brother. Wild Goose, what side are you on? Will you do the will of the Father? Well, the third point. Third point is in that same section, Jesus called his disciples that they could preach and heal. So, the third item is the appointment that God gave me. So, hello everybody, don't feel bad. I don't want to intimidate anybody. But, let me explain something to you. Why maybe I feel a little special interest in this. Do you all realize that it's also, when I talk about how glad I am to be here, let me tell you, and Betty, I'm going to watch myself. I'm not going to be too rambunctious up here. They taught me at Riverside how to stand still behind the pulpit.
Oh, no.
Do you all know that the first Sunday in September, 1956, was the first year of my preaching? Is that 64 years ago? 64 years ago, I preached my first sermon in Raleigh. And the Lord has brought me back to Raleigh, North Carolina, where I preached my first sermon. And I remember what that sermon was about. It was about living the abundant life. The thief comes to kill, and steal and destroy. But I have come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. That was the first sermon I ever preached in my life 64 years ago. And here I am right now. I could do the electric slide on this one. What the Lord says is, Jim, in the 3rd chapter of Mark, before we got to the parable, Jesus called disciples. So I want you to do the following. This is last great assignment. Jim Wallace, I know you're at Georgetown. See if you can get permission somewhere in and around there to preach a sermon on the parables. See, it's not just that God wants us to do the will of God, but are we willing to preach and teach the will of God? So, next year, look how God works. Next year, June 17, we're going to do Bible study. Your congregation, my congregation, all of us around there, don't worry, we're going to have a study guide for you. But I'm asking, Ken, are you a preacher?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, right. I'm asking every preacher that I can influence on that same weekend. And the reason I say this right weekend, the 17th of June is the Mother Emanuel Day. That's when we're going to do Bible study. And at Carnegie Hall, I'll be sponsoring a program for Juneteenth on June the 19th. Everybody, you got to do a Juneteenth program. Come on, get with the program. But on that Sunday, or if your worship is a different time, whether it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you ought to preach a sermon on the parable of the soil. Well, that feels like almost enough for me to say, except I do want to say this to you. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what it would be like for the United States of America on that weekend where death claimed 9, but God is not through with the parable, where God may claim America as a people who may hear what the Spirit is saying unto the churches. When I feel strongly about something, I usually write up a little piece of poetry about it. So this feels like a good place to share, to spring it on you. This is called Determined to Be Good Soil. Lord, I have chosen to be your servant, forever faithful and forever true, determined to be good soil for growing, seeds of your kingdom that are breaking through. The prophets and your son sowed seeds of truth to produce love and justice everywhere. You nurtured and watered them constantly to fill the earth with signs of your care. Forces of evil will not deter us. Neither hate nor greed nor lust for power will recruit us for demonic measures to block your plans from this sacred hour. I surrender my body, soul, and mind. I yield my life to the Spirit's control. I'll help build the beloved community to make humanity more just and whole. Now you await a bountiful harvest where all dwell as neighbors in harmony, where righteousness flows like a mighty stream and the good fruit grows more abundantly. That's it, my friends. I hope you will decide that if the Spirit is speaking to you and you find a way between now and next June 17, 18, 19, and 20, you will become an instrument of God for the completion of parable soil and the parable of the sower. God bless you. I'll see you there. I'll see you there. I'll see you there.